right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Better Days Reign here at Warrior Garden Studios. So today we're gonna do a big shout out to our veterans. Right, we got 4th of July coming up in 2 weeks, something like that, 2 weeks. And so I figured it'd be a good day or a good week, really. I would like to see if I can get a couple more guests to come on the show. But today I want to introduce a good friend of mine, mentor, friend, Chris Holt. Chris, how you doing, brother?
Doing great, brother. Hey, thanks for inviting me from Fire at Base Home here at Warrior Garden Studios. You bring up 4th of July. That's the original No More Kings Day, by the way. Fire Base Home, that's kind of our realm of things. So
Right.
I appreciate you finally getting us on your show.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot, over the last couple of weeks on how we're going to start doing this inner show mingling and bringing everything together because, that's what we're all about here at Warrior Garden Studios. Your addiction recovery, our way of showing how the government does not like to work with each other. And what you do and what we do actually cross paths a lot of times. A lot of times, and it don't help each other out at all. And we're going to get into that here in a few minutes.
Yeah. Well, part of the Better Days Reign mission is collaboration.
Yep.
It's working with other organizations. We are an entity that values service. So, and that a lot of that time it's service to other organizations, other people, but we're very proud of where we've gone in the last 10 months we've been operating.
Right. And, me being a veteran myself, retired Army, and also the commander of Post 425 down in Canyon, American Legion, down there, and seeing what you've done with our homeless veterans here in Amarillo, Texas Panhandle, and everything. I commend you because you're actually doing more than what we're actually doing right now. In your 10 months of service in the American Legion, we've actually been around for more than 100 years, but I'm not saying that the American Legion is not doing anything. Don't get that twisted.
Well, let's talk about that. What is the American Legion?
The American Legion is the largest veteran service organization in the world. We have 55 departments. We only have 50 states, but we have 55 departments because you got Department of France, Department of Latin America, you got Puerto Rico, you got Guam, right? So we even have Department of China, believe it or not. Yep, China Post 1. So it's even though they're not really recognized anymore, but we do have a China Post 1. And they're actually based out of Houston, Texas. Pretty cool. Their hats actually has a dragon on it. It's kind of tight. Our guys with Barry and all them, for their podcast that we have here,
right?
They would actually kind of like that hat.
I got you.
But yeah, for interfusion.
So y'all work with VA benefits.
Oh yeah, we get the VA benefits. Well, a lot of us are not certified to help them. We don't have the credentials or anything like that, but we are a resource,
right?
To help them file for their VA benefits. We can put them on the right track. We do have in the state of Texas for the American Legion, we do have 2 state certified service officers. That 2 in Houston and 1, or actually we do have 3 now. 2 in Houston and 1 in Waco that can help with filing VA claims through the American Legion. But we also work with the Texas Veterans Board and TVC and stuff to that nature. And we can also get them to the VA here in Amarillo for the Panhandle people to file for claims.
So how difficult is it for veterans to get what's due to them? Let's just be real about it. Let's talk about this. Well, because here's the reason I asked this. You see a lot of homeless veterans. You see a lot of veterans on drug addiction, running down the wrong road.
This is a two-edged sword, okay? You got veterans out there that deserve, rightfully so, their benefits. Right? But they also believe that there are a lot of the homeless veterans out there, there's some that never served overseas. And those veterans don't believe that they deserve a lot of the benefits that they actually do deserve.
Right.
Okay. Because they want their brothers and sisters to get the most of the benefits.
Right.
Okay. But at the same time, the other homeless veterans that have served, they're fighting PTSD. They're fighting drug issues, alcohol issues. They're trying to do, the secondary coping mechanisms on their own without actually seeking help.
You just go ahead and call them monsters.
Yeah.
Because they're monsters.
Oh, man. We see it all the time. You probably see it more so than I do because you're actually beating the street. But the thing is, a lot of the veterans, they believe that they're trying to help their battle buddies by not getting the benefits, right? And they're not realizing that they're actually hurting themselves by not getting the benefits. It's a double-edged sword.
Right.
That's just one small, minute excuse.
Right.
And that's what it is an excuse.
Gotcha.
And then you got some people out there, like I met a battle buddy when I was down in Austin one day. I was coming back from a convention, and I was at a stoplight. I'm like, dude, what are you doing out here on the street? Let me go buy you some coffee. Let me go buy you a meal or something. He goes, no, pull over here, man, and let me talk to you real quick. And so I pull off. I talk to him. He's using his military pension. He's 100% disabled and everything. He's living on the street because he's like, man, the military taught me how to live in the elements, bro.
Right.
And he's like, I'm helping people out here
to get
to recovery, get to some other place to get help. Helping people get fed.
Right.
That's what he's using his military pension for, monthly to get people help. He's not an addict. He wasn't, but he's like, the military taught me how to live in the elements. So he's using his pension to help others. He said, that's what God called me to do, And I'm like, bro, that's what it's all about right there.
Right.
I don't know if I could do that.
Service to my fellow man. I get it.
And I'm like, okay, so are you sure you don't need a cup of coffee? You don't need some
Right.
some bread in your stomach,
Yeah.
He's like, nope, I'm golden, bro. I'm like, okay. And I think Mike needs to, invest in some better equipment with like microphones or something.
He's good. It just dropped down on me real quick. I was like, whoa.
I'm proud to see, we always have those types of malfunctions when we're doing Firebase Home. I'm proud to see it actually happens to other people too, It's but no, it's just like when we got people coming back from they finally get into the system. Several years ago, the VA was notorious for giving oxycodone as pain relief.
Right.
And our veterans would just pop it like candy and then go back and they would refill it like nothing. Right. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, the VA just quit issuing it,
Yeah.
Well, now our veterans were so addicted to Oxy, they went out and found it elsewhere.
I don't know if that's a veterans thing or if that was like one of those control things where the government tried to control the distribution of opiates. Because when I had my accident back in 2014, I'm talking my legs were mangled, my foot was ripped off. I couldn't walk, I was paralyzed, and they wanted to prescribe me tramadol. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was the most ridiculous. Just give me Tylenol, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, which led into a heroin addiction further because I needed to relieve the pain.
The same thing happened to our veterans from the VA.
You know what I mean?
And then, I've heard rumor. I can't confirm this. I've tried doing my own research on it, but I can't confirm it. But about the time that they got rid of the Oxy thing, it was a time that they were talking about doing a study with marijuana with our veterans, for PTSD and stuff like that. Well, they also, from my understanding on total rumor mill. Okay. So I don't want to put this out there,
Right.
but it was total rumor from what I've been told is they were actually going to start issuing, veterans that have PTSD, chronic PTSD, and all this other stuff, and pain management.
Right.
Weed, a certain amount a month. Well, then they found out that these soldiers that are veterans that were having Oxy, they were also selling it.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the government, whoever said, well, if they're selling the oxy and coming back and getting more to sell it, what would stop them from doing that with the weed? Right. So I don't know if that's why our VA never decided to do prescription weed or anything like that, but just stopped all of a sudden.
I actually just read they turned in a large study from the CDC or whatever last night that they just got this large study back on marijuana and how it's a major contributor to heart attack and stroke. I never knew that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But to me, it kind of makes sense, you know, because jacks with all your respiratory stuff. Yeah, you ain't ever had a smoker's cough? Anyway.
I have a coffee addiction.
Me too, bro. 2 pots a day. It's going crazy.
I'm no longer a 2-pot guy.
Dude, between college, this, you know, and the studio, bro, I mean, I got to be focusing, so it's just coffee all day long.
Yeah, you know, when I was in the service, I used to go through one of those silver bullets a day. When I was in Afghanistan, my soldiers used to tell me, Sarge, if you get hit, we're not going to hook an IV up to you. We're just going to hook the silver bullet up to you so you can survive. I'm like, I'm good with that.
So you were in the Army, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's talk about this, man.
Yeah.
So let's talk about like active duty, right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys over there using, a lot of guys over there drinking.
Well, there's a funny story about this. When I was over there, I'm not going to give away the fob that I was at, but there was just weed growing wild right outside the entry control point. Okay. And we actually had to do tent inspections almost weekly.
Right.
Because we actually had guys sneaking out, cutting some weed and trying to dry it in their makeshift wall lockers or foot lockers and stuff.
Bro, it's that Afghan Kush, homie.
And,
it's that Kush.
And we've actually found some soldiers actually, because we do foot patrol and we'd be actually going through some poppy fields.
Oh wow, wow!
And they'd actually, you'd actually find some poppy every now and then.
Come back, pockets all.
And it's not like, I mean, there's a process for it,
right?
Yeah. But you get some of these young cats that think that they can do it. And
you'd be amazed how easy it is to kind of process some of that stuff. It's really not that difficult.
And but I mean, it's funny. I mean, I'm like, what are y'all doing? And
what do you think was the motivator behind that? Behind a lot of the drinking. I mean, obviously the war, right? There's a lot of shit, a lot of stuff y'all are dealing with mentally, right? But like back at the base, is it something that was
overseas? I didn't. The guys that were doing that stuff, I think they were just trying to do it just to see if they could get away with it. Number one, number two, boredom, right? Now we did have alcohol sent to us. I mean, there's a lot of ways to have booze sent to you overseas.
Right.
I'm not going to dime out because it looks like we're probably going to have soldiers on ground before too long.
Right.
So I don't want to give away the secrets. But when it comes to the poppy and the weed and stuff, I think that just came out of boredom, just to see if they get away with it, right? But back home, when I was in Alaska, I was only there maybe 4 weeks. I was a young private at the time, and that was the first time for me to actually see a drug canine. I mean,
I don't know. You just said Alaska, bro, and I just pictured you in like a bearskin suit with the. I can see it, mountain man, bro.
Trust me, we were issued a bear suit. That's what it was called,
awesome,
bro.
That's funny.
And I remember getting woken up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. CQ, charge of quarters, banging on the door. Wake up!
Yeah.
Stand to type of thing, and then we're standing outside our door in the barracks. All of a sudden, here's this beautiful, like Bellin Wall German Shepherd type dog, and they're searching, and this dog just sat down at this first. This guy actually had kilos of weed in his room, and he actually had kilos inside his mattress. That's what he was sleeping on.
Yeah.
They knew exactly who they were going for.
Right.
And I'm like, holy crap, man. No wonder it was so easy to drink in this dude's room at the age of like 19 years old. He knew how to get everything. You know, of course, my battery commander, captain in Alaska, he didn't care if you were underage and you were drinking in the barracks, as long as you didn't leave the barracks. Right. And you didn't get stupid.
Yeah, that's like the parental control button.
Yeah.
You know?
He goes, if you get stupid and you leave the barracks, UCMJ.
Yeah.
But if you can control yourself and you can stay inside the barracks, all's good.
Right. Okay.
He goes, but if you're 21, go do your thing.
Do what you do.
But he goes, if under 21 and you want to drink, stay in the barracks, you know, use the battle buddy system and don't get stupid. But man, that was my first time actually truly seeing a big deal of like drugs. I don't even know what kind they were at the time, because I mean, I was so stupid at the time with it. And then when I became an NCO and I was up in Fort Drum, New York, upstate New York, I was doing a barracks, not really a barracks inspection. I was just checking doors and stuff like you're supposed to do, because I was on 24-hour duty. And I'm like, man, that's a strong odor.
It smells good in here.
No, I opened the door and guys were doing meth pipes, dude.
Oh, never mind.
That was not the right smell to be smelling.
Right, I feel you.
And they're just looking at me like, hey. And so I closed the door and I called the MPs. Dudes were blitzed, man. They had no clue what was going on. And MPs arrest them. Next thing you know, they're having a whole like SWAT team of people coming through the barracks. And there was a lot of people arrested that night because of all the drugs that were actually in that barracks, you know?
Yeah.
And we didn't realize at the time how much drugs were actually going through the barracks at that point. And
right.
Then next thing you know, we're having a urine UA. Everybody for like the next 4 weeks, like every other day, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And it was 100% UA. It didn't matter what your rank was. And there for a while, it just seemed like we were losing people left and right to drug addiction. And that was back in like 06. Right after, well, no, see, God, it's been so long, but I think it was right after, right before we came back, or right after we came back from our first stint in Afghanistan. Let's see, that'd been 06, 04 to 06. So yeah, that'd been right after we came back from our 18-month deployment.
As I said, Desert Storm, ain't it?
No, that was OEF, Operation Enduring Freedom.
Oh.
We got extended. We did our first 12 months.
Desert Storm was in the 90s, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm tripping.
And so we got extended, and we weren't expecting it.
Yeah.
And we got it extended 6 more months overseas. And then when we came back, a lot of people were just, getting wasted, man. And
so I think you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier when you was talking about boredom. So a lot of what I see, and when it comes to drug addiction, especially with veterans that come home, they get their benefits, is they don't fill their life up with anything afterwards. Right? So, and I've asked you this question when we come in the shop, bro, like, you keep yourself pretty much embellished in American Legion,
yes,
which is awesome. It's an awesome way to do service for something that you believe in, right? But I think more importantly, it gives you purpose afterwards.
Well, what a lot of people don't realize is back in 2012, when I first got out, I didn't have a direction in life. I mean, yeah, I was doing paraprofessional work with the Quanah ISD, working with inclusion and self-contained students and stuff. But that really wasn't fulfilling. There wasn't enough action. There wasn't enough interaction with fellow veterans or people that had the adrenaline that I needed. And I had a 45 in my mouth, and my phone rang, and it was somebody inviting me to American Legion meeting. And I'm like, well, okay, well, let me go check this out.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, we're just trying to get our American Legion back up and going here, and we just need younger vets. Purpose.
Yeah.
You know?
Something to do.
And so next thing you know, I'm starting to do this. Then I find out that there's more than just local Legion.
Yeah.
There's a district. Then I find out that there's a division. Then I find out that there's a department.
Yeah,
then I find out there's a national.
Yeah.
You know, and next thing you know, I'm starting to network and doing everything. And then I find out all this other stuff that we can be doing to help the greater good. And it's not just veterans. It's an entire community we can be helping.
Absolutely.
And, you know,
absolutely.
So, and that's what I like about actually working with the VA here in Amarillo, because right now we have the American Legion has Be the One campaign, which is, you know, combating the 22 a day. Well, the VA also has a suicide hotline.
Right.
You know, well, we all came together and came up with 988, right?
Okay.
And that's working together. Well, now 988 is not just for veterans; it's for everybody.
Hold on. Touch on this, because see, this is things that I don't want people to realize, is that we want people to come on and talk about resources that no one knows about. And I had no idea about this.
Well, look at the billboard right outside the
988.
Yeah, look right outside.
So that's a suicide hotline.
Yeah,
for everyone.
For everyone. Look at the billboard right outside here.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right outside, right on the expressway, is 988 now.
Okay.
Right. And it started with Be the One in the VA, and now it has exploded into everything. And when you,
as it should,
and there's an actual button on there if you're a veteran, you know, and boom, you hit, like, I think it's number 2 or something like that, and you get linked in with the Veterans Hotline.
See, that's cool, because I didn't know that, and I look at that billboard all the time, and I still didn't know that. You know,
so if anybody else wants to know more about the Be the One campaign, just go to legion.org and look up Be the One.
Gotcha.
You know, and then you can actually take a free course from Columbia University.
No,
right?
Really?
And get certified on Be the One. You don't even have to be a veteran.
That's cool.
And and Be the One campaign through Columbia University is sponsored by USAA, the insurance company. Right. I mean, anybody can do it.
You know, it blows my mind how people don't talk about these kind of things out in the open.
It drives me insane.
It's really, like, disheartening. It's like, why do we not let people know this life-saving information? Why? I don't get it. And it's beyond me. To me, it's a pride issue, because at some point everybody knows that somebody's not gonna, you know, complete the program or follow through, or might fall short, and it doesn't want to damage the image of the. It's like, what are we doing out here? Are we caring? Are we caring about us? Or are we caring about them?
Well, you know, it's like, you know, I started in the mental health program at the VA here in Amarillo back in 2012. And here it is, 2025. And I've just now got discharged from the Amarillo VA mental health. I am now just solely going to be tracked by my primary care manager.
Gotcha.
Right. You know, 13 years of being tracked by the mental health. And that's a long walk. And it's scary now that the mental health is not going to be tracked. They're going to be there. Don't get me wrong. If I ever need them again.
So they're like an accountability partner, kind of?
Kind of, yeah.
Something like
that.
But
a lot of veterans don't give them a chance because they know it's a long journey, and they don't know that they can actually eventually get discharged from the mental health and be tracked solely by the PCM.
Gotcha.
But it's just like recovery, you know, go through all the way through the program, go through the step, and eventually, you know, not necessarily get discharged, but you can be there to help others.
Right.
You know, and it's a lifelong process. I know I'm never going to lose my PTSD. I know this. Right. I know I'm never going to lose my mental health challenges. I know this.
Right.
You know, but I have the tools. I have everything I need to succeed and live my life. And if I ever need to go back to mental health,
You can.
I can.
Right.
But it has taken 13 years to get to that point to where I can actually feel
Like you can function.
I can function.
Right.
And, it's taken me a long time to get there. And I've talked to a lot of people and they're like, I've done it. Some people it's taken 25 years. Some people it's taken 5 years. It took me 13.
Yeah.
There is no set timeline. The brain and addiction and everything else, it's wherever God wants you to be.
That is true. That is true.
And I just put it in God's hands and let him do it.
So let's drift off from that. Let's talk about the state of Texas and Amarillo a little bit. You get to go around the Texas state quite a bit.
Oh yeah.
Every week you're pretty much gone, right? Doing
Every
something.
week I'm on the road.
So where do you see, and I was just an honest question, like where do you see recovery in Amarillo? Where do you see recovery in the state of Texas? And where are we lacking? Where are we doing good? And this is because it's a non-player character point of view, right? So this is to somebody who's not.
I don't see recovery really happening, man. I see pockets of people that are doing great things and can't get grants to help people.
Right.
And the people that can get grants are abusing the grant money, lining their own pockets, and claiming they're helping people.
Right.
Is what I'm seeing.
Right.
And it's almost like politics. They get the grant money and then they run.
Politicians.
It's the same thing.
Yeah.
The ones that are doing the best work are using their own money and putting it right back into the very limited resources that they can get.
Yeah.
I'm going to use you for example. You're having a hard time getting Better Day Rain going, but everybody's calling you for help, and you're doing everything you can, and it's like nobody wants to help.
Well, it's so me and my wife, we had this conversation the other night, and it's like everybody wants to support something when it's free.
Yeah.
But let me hand you a contract, and that conversation will instantly stop.
Yep.
That support will instantly stop. There's limitations on to how much gratitude and support people have. So for me, that is probably the most frustrating part of my job. I love teaching. I love going into a classroom full of guys and we have a really heart-to-heart talk. And the program's going great. The podcast is going great. Social media is going great. I can't argue about anything as far as the Better Days Rain growth. The only thing I struggle with is getting support from non-player characters, from people who don't understand it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you try to tell them, but there's like this diminished view. You know what I'm saying? I think it's like almost inherited through, 2,000 years of being trained a certain way to think, So what I teach life recovery, right? I focus on the addiction recovery world, right? Because people in addiction recovery are willing to take that step. They're willing to sit there and say, maybe the way I think, maybe the way I feel, and maybe the way I believe is a little bit twisted. It's a little bit off. And I need to look at me, right?
Yeah.
So those people have taken that first step, whereas everybody else in the world believes a very certain specific way. And it's like getting people to budge on their beliefs, their thoughts, and their feelings is hard.
Right. And then, let's look at all these, some of the people that you've had on your programs in the previous weeks, months, let's look at how they're losing their jobs right now because of some of the policies that's been passed.
Yeah.
Right. And that goes back to the grant money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
A lot of the grants, the Doge just cut them.
Yep. Sliced them. Right
Sliced
out.
them. Wow.
Recovery programs got cut out overnight and they're still taking hits.
Yeah.
I mean, I still got some friends that have lost some jobs and looking for work other places and other fields because recovery is just taking a beating at the moment.
Yeah. And that's not where the cuts need to be at, and But at the same time, some of those grant monies, and not particular like your friends that you've had here, but a lot of those companies, had they used that grant money the right way, they might have been able to survive.
Stretch it out.
Yeah.
And I think, longevity. So you have some of these programs that operate primarily on like private funding, so there's some that barely felt the hit, were very minimal loss. But then there's others that were just like a company I was going to go work for down in Austin back in January, which they were predominantly federally funded because of what it was a training entity. It trained people how to get certified and peer support. And you know what I'm saying? Like it was a training entity that taught people how to do it. You know what I'm saying? So it was government funded.
Yeah.
And I mean, when that stuff passed, it shut down overnight.
Yeah. I mean,
like 2-3 days, it was gone.
Like boom, done.
Yeah. And, but there's a huge need for counselors and peer support specialists and, coaches, and sometimes we don't allow those people to step into that, take, for instance, for me, it's taken a lot of resilience to get to where I'm at. I started off wanting to be an LCDC. The state shut me down on that. And then I wanted to be in the peer support. I got shut down again. You know what I mean? And so now I'm on this life coach, recovery life coach, and I love it. I get to set my own parameters. I get to set what I want to do, and I get to have control of me, right?
Yeah.
Of me and the way I feel my recovery road has led me. You know what I mean? I'm not forced to bend anyone's way. And I think that's one thing we tend to do is we want to force recovery on people, and you just can't do it.
Right.
Can't do it. If somebody is not willing to take that step, can't make them.
Mm-mm. No, and it's just one of those things, and I really commend you on everything you've been doing, man. I really do. It's awesome.
Appreciate it.
So what else you want to know, man?
Let's see, man. What else? I think we've had a pretty good show, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Let's talk about Firebase. Where's Firebase home going?
Well, right now we're kind of waiting on John to get retired. He only has. Let's see here. Today is the
Hurry up, John.
It's the 19th, so he has about 10 more days.
Okay.
And once he gets fully retired, then it's going to open us up to almost being no holds bar, and It's going to get wild. So we're revamping everything and get John back on the show. I think Nolan and I is going to steal Mike's little 4K stick. We're going to go down to Paladera Canyon and do some off-the-wall stuff down in the canyons.
Yeah, I need to get Nolan on the show.
And so we got some stuff coming, but we're just basically waiting for John to get away from his day job.
Gotcha.
And we're going to go from there. I think Mike has some stuff from when I put that hook in my finger. That was pretty hurtful, but
okay, I got something else. I know what I want to talk about real quick before we close out. When we met, you kind of got to see where I was at. And this is about a year ago, right? And I was in some turmoil. I didn't know which direction I was going to go. I just gotten certified in peer support, but found out the state of Texas wasn't going to license me. So I definitely hit a wall, right? I hit this wall and was like, what am I going to do? And I stepped out and I asked a friend for help she used to take care of me when I was in treatment. And she introduced me to y'all, right? And what happened after that?
You started growing. You actually you found a good support group of people that actually believed in you. You stepped out of what I would call people that you used to trust and call your friends to better people, better men, better women that can help you and your family live a better life.
Correct.
And you got that old saying that you live your life with the people you surround yourself with.
Right.
And you really didn't know how to trust other people. And you started trusting better people because of who you surrounded yourself with. And now you're living a better life. You got color back in your face. You know, you've actually gained some weight. You know,
a lot of weight. A lot of weight.
You're living a lot better structure. I've seen you going back to school. You know, you're building your own company right now. You have focus, you have determination. Man, it's amazing seeing where you were, you know, a year ago to where you're at now. And it's awesome. You know, it's like, you know, this morning, you know, this last week you were saying that you're having some trouble and stuff, you know, and you're all, you know, you become somebody that we're so used to relying on around the shop here at Warrior Garden Studios. And you said you're going to be here before 10, and all of a sudden it's 10:15 and you're not here. Well, Mike and I start.
I was here at 10:22.
We're getting worried about you, and like, okay, what happened? Blah, blah. And we start making phone calls. Yeah, you know, and okay, well,
and that's cool.
Okay, so your wife wanted you to come back to bed, you know, and sleep next to her for a couple of more minutes, and you fell back asleep. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. You know, I'm okay with that. Right. But when somebody gets so used to you being reliable, and they start worrying about you, that is what you want in your life.
Right.
You know? And when we first met you, you told us that you've never had anybody that cared about you or even thought about you being reliable in somebody else's life.
Man, so much, you know, when it really boils down, like, I thought about this a lot when somebody asked me, like, why did it take so long, right? And when I really look at it, okay, speaking from the heart, I didn't experience love in its entirety, you know, the wholesome feeling of love and unconditional love, right, until about a year ago. And it's crazy how just that one concept really just changed my whole outlook on life, the way I live my life, what I co-sign to, what I don't, what I attach myself to. You know what I mean? And it's crazy because I think that's what a lot of us suffer from. Is just we have this misconstrued notion of what love is or should be versus just the wholeness of it.
Well, you know, that's what Warrior Garden Studios is all about, you know.
Bro, a lot of love up in this place, man. A lot of love.
You know, there's a lot of love, there's a lot of there's a lot of love, there's a lot of tears, there's a lot of truth. But the main thing is we hold each other accountable.
Bro, it's awesome up here. You know, gave me a lot of purpose. I got real quick before we close out, man, I want to do a big shout out to the guys here at Warrior Garden Studios and Bald Guys Productions. Man, these dudes have stepped in to help somebody out that they didn't even know. They legit didn't know. When I met these guys on beginning of the year, I walked in here, my tail tucked between my legs, and Mike over there said, you either give me 100% or you don't give me nothing.
Yep.
That's exactly what he told me. And I think I've kind of lived up to that. I think I've put in work, you know. But, you know, that's what it takes. It takes that leap of faith in doing something you've never done before to try to change the outlook on your life.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because, you know, 25 years of being beat down and having this really hateful mentality. When I met Mike and you guys, man, like, bro, y'all brought tears to my eyes and have just been a blessing on mine and my wife's life ever since. And we are very grateful and appreciative.
Yep.
It's saying
that. It goes both ways, man.
Yeah.
It goes both ways. So, but hey, thanks for having me on tonight. I'm used to saying not because that's when Firebase Home is usually on. But real quick, Firebase Home's going to be coming back here next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for that from Warrior Garden Studios at Ball Guys Productions, and check out the merch for Firebase Home as well. So we'll be doing some shorts for Firebase Home. Keep up with that. Pay attention, but take us out, bro.
Yeah. And again, thank you from Warrior Garden Studios. Better days reign. Y'all have a great weekend.